Chapter 24, and the final chapter of Tractate Shabbos, begins with a Mishnah saying somebody who is traveling right before Shabbos started, he should give his purse to a non-Jewish person. If there's nobody there, then he should put it on his donkey. And when you get to the outermost courtyard of the city, he can take off any utensils that can normally be carried on Shabbos, and things that can't be carried, he should just untie them and let them fall off on their own. The Gemara says we allow the purse to be given to a non-Jewish person, even though normally you can't ask them to do a labor for you on Shabbos, but this was allowed, as if it wasn't, people would just end up carrying to save their money on Shabbos. Also, this applies only to your own money purse and not to a found object, and it's discussed. It's better to give the purse to the non-Jew than the donkey, because there's a verse specifying not to give it to an animal. Similarly, it also says it's better to give the purse to a deaf, mute, an insane person, or a minor than to give to the donkey, as those are people, unlike the donkey. It's better to give to the insane individual than a deaf, mute, or a minor. There's an argument if you should give it to a deaf, mute, or the minor. If you have none of these as options, you're technically allowed to carry the purse in 4-cubit increments, but this was not a publicized law, as somebody doing this might accidentally end up carrying. There's further discussion, and the point on putting it on a donkey is where it's already walking, so it doesn't do a complete malacha. And if the donkey stops to urinate, you should remove it and put it back on when it resumes walking. Doing this with a person is rabbinically an issue, but it's allowed with an animal. Also, technically, you can just start running and never stop until your house, so you never stop, and then throw your pack off in an unusual manner, like backhanded, so you never actually do a violation. It mentions some points on the punishment for liabilities of leading a forbidden animal. This is discussed onwards for a bit. It also gets into a bit more on unloading an animal of mukta items, like being able to put pillows beneath before dropping them. The breakable glass utensils being referenced are bloodletting pipettes, which are useless on Shabbos. It also discusses animal medicinal spoiled honey, and other points on dropping sacks. It also has some points on trees, saying the sides of trees are forbidden for use on Shabbos, but something else on the side of the tree, the side of the side, is valid for use. For instance, you can't lean a ladder on a palm tree, but you may lean it on stakes coming out of the palm tree, and then you can only stand on the ladder and not on the stakes. New Mishnah. You can untie bundles of straw before an animal and scatter cedar boughs, but not 3 times bound bundles of straw. You cannot shred fodder or carobs before an animal, whether it's a big or it's a small animal. Rabbi Yehuda allows shredding carobs for a small animal. The Gemara gives many definitions of all these straw bundles. According to one sage, you can untie both kinds of straw bundles, but with neither kinds of cedar boughs. Others disagree. The first guy's logic is that you can do something to improve a food, but you cannot make a non-food into food. According to him, we could be discussing fodder that is hard, similar to the carobs, to fit like his opinion. There's argument based on this what the latter part of the Mishnah is talking about when it says a large or small animal, and that goes unresolved. The other opinion is debated, and he holds we're speaking of spoiled straw, which requires crumbling, and the fodder in question is being fed to young donkeys, which also requires crumbling. New Mishnah. No stuffing or force-feeding a camel, but you can put food down its throat. Also, no fattening calves, but you can put food down their throats. You can force-feed chickens and put water in their bran, but don't need the water and bran. No putting water before bees or doves in a dovecot, but you can put water before geese, chickens, and Herodian pigeons. The Gemara defines these different actions of stuffing an animal. Based on similar sources, it argues definition of feeding and force-feeding birds, and an opinion says you cannot feed animals on Shabbos you're not responsible for. There are sources brought. It also says how to feed wild dogs and similar points. It also defines the issue on mixing or kneading bran and water. Some allow kneading toasted grain flour and water in a deviated manner in small amounts at a time. There's further discussion on deviation, like when you put vinegar into this mixture and other such deviations. This is going through a sage's ledger, by the way, and then he gets into a point on people's birth times and how it will affect them as a person. He says, if you're born on a Sunday on which light and dark was created, you'll either be all good or all bad. If you were born on Monday, you'll be angry because that's the day when the waters were divided. Tuesday, wealthy and promiscuous, as that's when plants were created, and plants relate to those concepts. Wednesday, wise and radiant, as that's when the sun and moon and similar were created. Thursday, you will do deeds of kindness, as that's when fish and birds were created. Friday, you'll be an assiduous individual in pursuit of mitzvahs, according to some. If you were born on Shabbos, you will pass on Shabbos, as your birth caused a violation of the Shabbos. Some add that he'll be a great and holy man. Others disagreed with all this, saying it goes according to the celestial sign at the hour of your birth. At the hour of the sun, you will be of lustrous appearance. You'll eat of your own food and drink, but your secrets will be revealed, and if you attempt to steal, you won't succeed. If you were born by the hour of Venus, which is associated with fire, you'll be wealthy and promiscuous. If you were born by Mercury, which is the companion of the sun, you'll be wise and radiant. If you were born by the moon, you'll suffer afflictions. You'll build and raise and build, eat the food and drink of others, but your secrets will be kept, and if you attempt to steal, then you'll succeed. If you are born under Saturn, your plans will come to naught. Others say that plans against you will come to naught. By Jupiter, you'll be a man of righteousness, some say regarding mitzvahs. Some say that if you're born under Mars, you'll be a spiller of blood, be it as a bloodletter, thief, slaughterer, or male. Some say the celestial signs determine your intelligence and wealth and hold sway over you. Others say that they hold no sway over the Jewish people, as they can change their fates. Others agree. There are stories brought to prove this. There's a story about a man who was told about him that a snake would kill him, but he gave his bread to somebody else so that way he wouldn't be embarrassed, and the snake was found to be cut in half. There's a similar and very famous story about the daughter of Rabbi Akiva, who was told by astrologers that on the night of her wedding, a snake would bite and kill her. When the night came, she took off her brooch and stuck the pin in the wall for safekeeping. The next day she was fine, so she removed her pin, and she found that she had speared a snake in her wall through its skull. Rabbi Akiva, her father, asked what she had done to merit this, so she told him that during her wedding feast she had given her plate of food to a poor beggar by the door. Rabbi Akiva taught based on this that charity saves from all death. A similar story about how the celestial signs have no sway over the Jewish people. A sage was told as a child that he would grow up to become a thief, so his mother never allowed him to uncover his head. One day, as he was studying, his cloak fell off his head, and his evil inclination overpowered him, and he ate some dates off a tree with his teeth. New Mishnah. You can cut up gourds before an animal to feed them on Shabbos, or a carcass before dogs. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow this if it wasn't a carcass before Shabbos started, as it wasn't prepared for the dog's use. There's a disagreement on who we follow based on what you hold by object preparation by muktzah. This is argued on for a bit. New Mishnah, last Mishnah of the chapter and of Tractate Shabbos. You may annul and be released from vows on Shabbos if the vow is to abstain from something necessary on Shabbos. You may temporarily shutter a window and measure a rag or a mikvah in regard to impurity. We learn from an incident involving many of these objects that you can shutter, measure, and temporarily tie on Shabbos. The Gemara explains the point on annulling and being released from vows on Shabbos if their relevancy is to Shabbos. It also gives an analogy of using the shutter and tying an earthenware flask to determine if there was a large enough distance by a barrel to apply certain laws of impurity to it. In regards to measuring, it says that measuring is allowed if it's for a mitzvah. A sage was one time measuring a tub of water that he was in on Shabbos, but that was just because he was busying himself and it wasn't done with any real purpose. And with that, that's the end of chapter 24 and the entirety of Tractate Shabbos. Thank you so much for watching.